Reade spoke out today with Megyn Kelly saying she'd like to see you drop out of the race. We'd like to get your response to that.
Well, look, nothing ever happened with Tara Reade. Believing women means taking a woman's claim seriously when she steps forward and then vetting it, looking into it. And that's true. That's true in this case, too. Women have a right to be heard, and the press should rigorously investigate claims like these. I'll always uphold that principle. But in the end, in every case, the truth is what matters. And in this case, the truth is these claims are flat out false.
All right.
False.
Joe Biden had his opportunity to sit down to talk to Mika. Megyn Kelly just yesterday spoke with Tara Reade. The public is not necessarily buying Joe Biden's case. Now, whether or not the party votes for him or not is secondary to whether or not they entirely believe Joe Biden. You have there's different polling, but in all of the polling, the majority of the people say, we believe Reade. We believe Reade. And there's an interesting dynamic in this where a large percentage of the party wants Joe Biden replaced. Now, this is a large percentage in comparison to Trump, who has like a 94% approval rating among Republicans, meaning they are fully, entirely behind their candidate, whereas the Democratic Party, not so much. Now, I made the point before that in order for the Democratic Party to win this race, they need numbers, meaning they need to swell the vote total. I know Donald Trump is extremely concerned about the polling because the polling has been showing Biden ahead. But if you look back to April, North Carolina, Clinton up by 4.5. Result, Trump wins by 3.6. Pennsylvania, Clinton up 5.3. Trump wins by 0.07. Florida, Clinton up 7.0. Trump ends up winning by 1.2. Wisconsin, Clinton up 1.3. Trump ends up winning by 0.7. I'm making the point that just because the polling is showing that Joe Biden is winning now, from the standpoint of enthusiasm, from the standpoint of support, from the standpoint of getting people out to vote, from the standpoint of even the issue of cash, Joe Biden, I would argue, is not necessarily winning the race in the way that the polling is showing. And he should be very concerned. You should be very concerned, considering the polling was showing the exact same thing last time. And I'm only talking about Democrats here. Welcome to Late Night Soapbox.
Underneath my clothes, and it happened all at once. So he had one hand underneath my shirt, and the other hand I had a skirt on, and he went down my skirt and then went up. And I remember I was up almost on my tippy toes, and when he went inside the skirt, he was talking to me at the same time, and he was leaning into me, and I pulled this way away from his head, I remember, and so he was kissing my neck area, and he whispered, "Did I want to go somewhere else?" in a low voice.
I'm going to cover her interview with Megyn Kelly in a different video, but you heard the denial, you heard the story. It was heartfelt. The amount of abuse and attacks that she's endured because of this is somewhat disturbing, especially since the Democratic Party was the party that appropriated the Me Too movement, and now they're willing to set it on fire in order to get Joe Biden elected. Interesting part about the polling that recently came out. The polling has different numbers, but they're showing somewhat of a similar trend in regards to the people who believe or disbelieve Joe Biden. Democrats, of course, partisan reasons, believe Joe Biden more. Republicans, of course, for partisan reasons, believe Joe Biden less. Independents, somewhere in the middle. Let's look at the polling on this. So this is called fat finger polling. Let's start with this one. Fat finger, 54%. I believe the accusation. 32%. I don't believe the accusation. The accusation changes my opinion of Biden for the worse, 33%. The accusation does not change my opinion, 47%. The accusation changes my opinion for Biden for the better. 2%. That would be weird. The accusation should be fully investigated. 79%. Right there. That's due diligence. If you tell the public there's an allegation and we can see what was taking place in the Kavanaugh hearings, it's a weird thing to say we're not going to investigate, which is exactly what Tom Perez said. Looks like you're trying to protect the guy as opposed to do due diligence for the female and the allegation itself. Reade says she filed a contemporaneous report. Now, is the report basically, do you want to see the report if the report is available? 60% says yes. If the report exists, do you find it to be damaging? 43% say yes. Let's go to another one. This one is YouGov polling. Look at this one. 30% of the people believe the accusation. Now, of that, 34% of men, 26% of women. How weird is that? That's a little catty. Now, when we get into the party breakdown, 12% of Democrats, 29% of independents, 53% of Republicans. Of registered voters, you get 34% that says, yes, we believe the allegations. 29%, no, we don't believe the allegations. So whether you're talking about this poll or the other poll, you still get a majority, or let's say, yeah, a majority of the people within the poll believing Reade's allegations. Now, let's go to this part. I was just looking to see if there was any kind of weird skew with the by any of the other dynamics. All right, so here's another one. Are you satisfied with Joe Biden's response? 19% said they're very satisfied. That's all. 32% somewhat. But look at not satisfied. 49%. Last one. Do you want to replace Joe Biden? 29% say yes. 29% say yes. That includes 24% of Democrats, meaning a fourth. A quarter of the Democrats want Joe Biden replaced. 29%, however, total. Of those that are registered voters, 27%. Think about that for the moment. Think about that. A quarter, you're going into a general election and you're going to do gladiatorial combat with the person from the other side of the political space. That guy has 94% people saying, yes, we're for him, of his own party. And Joe Biden is going into a situation where 24% are still saying, God, can we replace this guy? Now, the technical answer to that is yes, because Joe Biden hasn't won anything yet. By the same token, the answer is probably going to be no, because the person who's behind Joe Biden is Sanders. And the entire point of Joe Biden even being in that race was to stop Sanders, not to beat Trump. I know a lot of people who are voting Democrat were voting for Biden thinking that the entire point of Biden was to actually beat Trump. You had the party, upper echelon, and what you were thinking were two different things. What the people out there who vote Democrat are thinking in regards to beating Trump is slightly different than what the upper echelon was thinking in regards to what they needed to accomplish as their highest accomplishment. Their highest objective was to stop Sanders. Beating Trump was always secondary to that process. Now, the public may be looking at this like, oh, God, you need to replace this guy. But again, if you agree with me that the highest point was to stop Sanders, then the question becomes, how do you replace Biden without giving it to Sanders? And will you be okay with that? Now, Sanders may say, I don't want it, in which case you don't necessarily have an issue there. I guess the question becomes, if this was Pete Buttigieg or Kamala Harris or, Amy Klobuchar behind Joe Biden in regards to the number of delegates, will there be an issue here and would they be more inclined to replace Joe Biden? But nevertheless, a quarter of the Democratic Party is like, yeah, we got to replace him. This ain't working. All right, so here's one more. This one is Monmouth. Do you believe the accusations against Joe Biden? 37%. Basically 1 in 4. So basically what you're ending up with, basically across several polls, is about 40% of people saying, yeah, we think he did it. Why is that important? That's important because it's a headwind when you go to vote. Why do you think that the Democratic Party always calls somebody sexist and racist and et cetera, et cetera. They do that because they want to create a headwind in your mind in trying to vote for that person. What is it like to vote for somebody if that person is sexist or racist? It's like you just voted for somebody who just murdered somebody. It's like, oh, that feels sketchy. I should have boundaries. I should have standards. Well, same thing applies to this. If a person believes that, there is a headwind in that person voting for that candidate. And if you need to have numbers, large numbers, in order to win, you need people to be gyrating, gesticulating, and going out, knocking on doors, and putting out flyers, and all those type of things. This makes that more difficult. And in order to beat Trump, you're going to need numbers. And I've already shown you the numbers earlier in this video in regards to Trump versus Clinton, and how Clinton was winning all of those swing states and then lost all those swing states. So whatever the polling is now, take it with a grain of salt. Now, this is not limited, by the way, to Biden and Trump. Meaning the conversation that these guys are having, or the fight these guys are having, especially over this issue of the Tara Reade thing, it's not isolated just to the presidential election. It also goes to the Senate. Why does it go to the Senate? It goes to the Senate because of videos like this. Like this.
Watched that hearing last Thursday, and I believe Dr. Ford.
I believe Dr. Ford. I thought she was credible.
I believe her. Her story is credible.
It comes down to credibility, to your point, Gail, and it's going to be about listening to what each party has to say, but I believe her.
I was proud of Dr. Blasey Ford's response and her demeanor, but more importantly, her courage and stuff.
Each and every one of these people have stood up. I believe Biden. I believe Biden. Down the line, all of these women, all of these senators, all of these congressmen who acted that way during the Brett Kavanaugh hearing are on tape, are on video, behaving just like that. And there's nothing wrong with saying I believe Ford. The issue is using Ford as a political football, which is basically what was taking place for the Kavanaugh hearing. So now you have a situation where when the race is being run in the House and the Senate, the argument is, look, these guys are hypocrites. These guys were out there using this for a partisan football, and now they're backing Joe Biden, who's being accused of sexual assault. Now, you've already seen the Republican amount. Now, the catch here is the independents. If the independents buy onto that argument like, God, man, that is pretty pathetic. I mean, look at the way you guys were going for Kavanaugh, but look at the way you guys have kicked Ford under the bus. That can cut into numbers. Now, the catch becomes, what is the number? What's that percentage? Is that percentage negligible, or is that percentage significant enough where you can shave off just enough to eke a congressman out of office? Now, the defense that the Democratic Party is using is laughable. So Senator Doug Jones, this is Politico. Senator Doug Jones of Alabama, this is the guy that beat the, was he a pedophile or something? I forget what it was, but he beat the guy. But he barely beat the guy. Senator Doug Jones of Alabama, the Senate's most vulnerable incumbent and a close Biden ally, said that it's like apples and oranges, talking about Ford and Reade. It wasn't just about who you believed. It was about the whole nature of the Kavanaugh hearings, the lack of investigation, Jones said. I mean, we got a president of the United States who simply said, I didn't do it, and they're okay with that. And as we say in the South, that's the kind of pot calling the kettle black. I don't think they want to start really opening up allegations of misconduct like that. Whataboutism. That's whataboutism. They're actually something very specific, and you never really explain what it means to be apples and oranges. Joe Biden was accused of a sexual assault when he was an adult, when he was a powerful senator, and when he basically was engaging in assault for somebody with no power. That's basically the allegation. Kavanaugh was accused of assault, being a dick when he was a child, abusing someone during that period of his life. There's a difference in those things. She has corroborating evidence that goes beyond even Ford. And the issue here is that if you believe Ford, you believe her. If it's apples to oranges, it's apples to oranges in the sense that she has more corroborating evidence. So it's not apples to oranges. What's apple to oranges is in the way you're regarding the Kavanaugh case versus the way you're dealing with Joe Biden. They are perfectly right in making this point that you guys are being magnificent, emancipatory hypocrites. and the way that you engage in this case. Even your language here doesn't even make sense. Why is it okay? Say for the moment you're right. Say Donald Trump raped 3 people. What does that have to do with you voting for Joe Biden if you think Joe Biden is a rapist? I don't understand the comparison. Is there anything objective about your party at all, or is it all relative to the Republican? One rape less. Is that really where you want to go as a party? And is that really a standard that you want to break? Meaning, is there anything objective about what it means to be a Democrat? Or is it always and entirely relative to what it means to be a Republican? Where Jones will make the argument he raped more women than our guy. Is rape no longer a standard in the Democratic Party? That's shocking. That's shocking. Oh, Pam Hall. Thank you, Pam Hall. I appreciate it. All right, I'm going to end this here because I have 1 or 2 videos. Like, share,